Scene 11. The Goblin Village. The damp earth shifted beneath their feet as Tira and the others followed the two goblin guards deeper into the lair. Despite the dim lighting, the path was worn smooth, and faintly luminescent moss bathed the passageways in a soft green glow, lending an odd coziness to the otherwise dank corridors. Tira trailed slightly behind, her spirits low as she noticed Bannock glancing at Liz with a faint, shy smile whenever the goblins fawned over her. Yet the group overall seemed in high spirits, laughing amongst themselves as the goblins continued to treat Liz with an almost comical reverence. The skinny goblin, who had an oversized helmet, kept glancing back to Liz as he chattered. "This way, your shiny ladyship. Soon we come to the grand village, and oh, the best socks. Finest in the lands," he puffed up with pride, gesturing animatedly. "Every goblin knows shiny lady deserves the best." Liz offered an amused nod, unable to resist the smirk tugging at her lips. "Of course, Mr. Mudfoot, lead the way," she said with a regal flourish. The goblin beamed at the sound of his own name coming from her voice, his sharp teeth flashing as he turned back around. Addie snickered. She caught Tira's eye with a grin. "Liz, the Goblin Queen," Addie whispered, leaning close with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "I hope we don't have to take them all home with us now." Tira snorted, feeling a little more at ease. "Honestly, I'm half expecting her to stay here," she muttered with mock exasperation, still considering that all of this was probably a simulation. Addie rolled her eyes. "If she starts handing out rolls and giving pep talks, I'm out," she said, pretending to gag. "The whole shiny lady thing's already getting real old." She paused, glancing toward Mac, who was walking a little too closely to Liz, practically hanging on her every word as she humored the goblins. Addie's expression darkened slightly, her voice dropping as she muttered. Tira raised an eyebrow, catching the hint of frustration in Addie's tone. "Anything you want to share, you and Mac?" she teased gently, nudging her friend. Addie's cheeks tinged pink. "No, nothing like that," she said quickly, glancing away, though her voice softened as she added, "It's just he doesn't have to give her all that attention, you know? He's acting like a lost puppy or something." Tira hid her smile, seeing through Addie's denial. "Looks like a lot of the boys are distracted by the shiny lady," she said, motioning Addie's gaze over towards Bannock. For a moment she felt lighter, appreciating how a little venting and laughter had lifted her spirits. In her mind, Max's voice chimed in, gentle but firm. "Just remember, Liz is still an ally, Tira." There was a faint hint of humor in his tone. A shiny ally. Tira stifled a laugh, and as they walked she felt a growing warmth toward Addie. The cramped tunnel soon opened up into a bustling underground hamlet, dim but lively, filled with goblins of all shapes and sizes going about their day. The hamlet was more bustling village than lair, with stalls and small stands dotting the space, each under a crude banner of tattered cloth. In place of human wares there were odd collections, gleaming stones, mismatched trinkets, and piles of salvaged scraps. One stall held an entire pile of socks in every shape and color, each one dirtier and more worn than the last, proudly displayed as if they were treasures. The larger goblin guard scrambled over to the sock stand, pulling out a frayed pink sock with a large hole in the toe. "For the shiny lady," he declared, bowing awkwardly as he presented it to Liz. Liz took the sock with mock reverence and shot a disgusted eye roll at Val. Otherwise, her acting skills were impressive. "A royal gift indeed," she said, patting the goblin on his bumpy head. His eyes grew wide with pride, and he scurried off, beaming with joy. Kenny, watching the scene with a hint of wariness, muttered to Kelly, "Don't forget, they're still goblins. We should remain vigilant." Kelly, examining a small goblin bartering over a shiny pebble, shot her brother a disapproving look. "Not every goblin's out to get us, Kenny. They're just different. Not everything is out to get you, you know. Maybe it's a lesson the professors want us to learn?" Kenny sighed, his expression firm. "Being different doesn't mean we shouldn't let our guard down. Goblins are infamously creatures of chaos and trickery." He cast a cautious glance at a group of goblins who were debating intensely over the color of a dirty sock. Kelly shook her head, smiling as one goblin waved a sock triumphantly. "It doesn't hurt to give them the benefit of the doubt sometimes. Maybe you're just being a bit too cautious." Kenny grumbled, crossing his arms. Maybe you're being too idealistic." Val stepped up beside them, watching the goblins thoughtfully. "Don't worry if they slip up. Dev and I will handle them," she said, her tone neutral but respectful. For the first time since they entered the lair, Bannock wandered a bit closer to Tira, both watching the goblins' antics with fascination. "Who knew goblins would be so obsessed with socks?" he chuckled. Tira laughed, her earlier jealousy all but forgotten. "Honestly, I kind of like them. They're oddly endearing." One goblin child scampered up, a sock on each ear, and squealed in excitement at seeing the shiny lady. Tommy and Mac chuckled at the sight, and even Devin managed a smirk, the child's innocent joy enough to soften his usual stern expression. Tira felt a warmth settle over her, a sense of shared wonder as she watched her friends witness this strange slice of goblin life. As they neared the end of the lair, Tira's thoughts turned back to their mission. Amid the cozy, almost domestic atmosphere, she couldn't ignore the worry gnawing at her. They still needed to rescue the girl, and she couldn't shake the feeling that things might not be as simple as they seemed. She caught Bannock's eye, and he gave her a reassuring nod. "We'll get her back," Bannock said, his voice quiet but steady. "These goblins, so far they're harmless, just as long as we stay on their good side. As long as we have Liz, we should be fine." Tira nodded, appreciating his calm presence, but cringing slightly at the mention of Liz's name coming out of his mouth. Beneath her smile, a hint of doubt lingered. The goblins were charming, yes, but the warnings from Kenny weighed on her mind. Their path finally led them to a grander set of doors, grand by goblin standards at least. Heavy and reinforced with mismatched strips of metal, they were covered in scratched etchings that looked like a mix of goblin runes and scribbles. One of the goblin guards knocked twice, puffing up with importance. "Great and mighty Goblin King," he called with dramatic flair. "The shiny lady has arrived." There was a long pause, followed by shuffling sounds from behind the door. The goblin guard turned back to the group, grinning as if he'd accomplished something monumental. But after a moment of awkward silence, he scratched his head, looking sheepish. "Ah, locked," he muttered, blinking in confusion. Liz sighed with exaggerated patience. "Of course it's locked." "Don't you have a key?" The goblin guard shrugged, embarrassed. "Key," as if goblins hadn't heard of such foreign objects. The group exchanged looks, realizing they'd have to figure out a way in on their own.